Here's a few things you can do to get that 1960s drum sound. I grew up listening to bands like Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, and later got into Motown and stuff like that. Also, the great jazz records of the 1960s, drummers like Elvin Jones. The list goes on. I love how they sound. The way things are captured, a lot of it was done live with the musicians playing together, and it just has such a feel and a sound that is undeniably good. So here are some ways to get that sound. The first thing we need is a period-appropriate drum set. Here I've got a 1960s Slingerland drum set. This is a 20-inch bass drum, 12-inch rack tom, 16-inch floor tom, and a 14-inch chrome-over brass Slingerland snare drum. These are from the 60s, so definitely can get the sound that I'm looking for with these drums. If you don't have a 60s drum set, that's okay, because a lot of the sound is coming from the way they're tuned and also the mic selection and mic placement. So one thing I learned from listening to these recordings is that the drums are tuned pretty high. Today, in 2025, a lot of the things I'm asked to record and a lot of the music that is out there, drums are tuned pretty low. There's a lot of muffling. So it took me a while to get used to tuning higher than I normally would. But that is definitely the sound. If you listen to these drums, how they're tuned. Pretty high tuning. That's kind of how I would tune a kit if I was going out for a jazz gig. But a lot of these records, Mitch Mitchell, even Bonham, they're tuning pretty high, higher than you think they would. Also with the bass drum, a lot of the drummers played a kick drum that did not have a hole in the front, which gives it a more open sound. There's more ringing that's going to happen from the drum. The next really important factor is mic selection and mic placement. On a lot of 60s recordings, there wasn't as much close miking happening because there wasn't as many tracks to work with on the tape machines or consoles that they were using. So in a lot of cases, it might have just been one overhead and kick. So what I'm doing here is I have a pair of overheads. These are Peluso P67s, which are modeled after the Neumann U67, which is something that very well could have been used in a late 60s recording session. I also have a condenser mic on the snare. This is a Sony ECM 377 from the 70s. So it's pretty old, and it wasn't uncommon to have a condenser on the snare. I also have a Shure SM57 on the bottom, just in case I want to capture some of the snappiness of the snare wires. On the bass drum, I have the AKG D112, which is the closest thing I have to what might have been used back then, which is like an AKG D12 or D20. D112 was something that they sort of modeled after those classic mics. But that is definitely a modern mic, but it gets the job done. And that's about it. Now, if I want a room mic, I have one over here. It's the RCA KB2 in front of the kit. Depending on what I'm doing, I might record these mics directly to analog tape to really capture that vintage sound. But also a lot of times I just record into Pro Tools, and then I use plugins to mix and get that analog warmth and saturation in the box.